Right, and if I can piggyback that, and it brings up a really good point that we've been trying to get the word out, obviously professionals like yourselves and to prospective home buyers and sellers, that with the issue, if you have a homesteaded property now and you've accrued some cap or some savings that you want, that now you're allowed to port to your next home, the portability issue that comes up quite a bit. It's important to understand because the way the law is written, if you read it, some people think that you have 2 years to port your tax savings to your new home, and the reality is you have 2 tax years. And so, and now that you're speaking, we're coming towards the end of the year. If you were to close on a home between now and December 31st, you have till the end of next year, not two full years.
You have a year and 2 months.
Exactly. And we have folks that get tripped up by that all the time. That they'll sell in December, or they'll buy in December, close on a home, and then they wait and or they've sold or whatever, and they hold that savings and they buy within the next year. They're fine.
But it's a year and a month.
It's a year and a month.
You're out.
Exactly, and then you've lost that tax savings, and now it could be a big number depending on whether if you're upsizing quite a bit.
You know, and I think a lot of times people, again, when you're looking at it from that perspective, that they forget about how things are, the timing of tax years versus annual years. You know, they're not the same thing. And we run into that. We get people that run into that, you know, a good bit. I think the same thing applies, you know, when you're looking at the end of the year and you're thinking about purchasing a property. These are some of the things you got to take into consideration. So often, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, consumers get focused purely on the price. You know, so an example would be somebody that's looking at buying a home right now and they're moving up, and then they're going to sell their home, and they want to bring their homestead exemption with them to their new property, and maybe they want to buy before they sell. Well, you know, if they're buying or selling now, they have that small window to, not only do they have to buy, but they have to sell. In order to move their homestead exemption over, that window shrinks if they're doing it towards the end of the year. But consumers focus predominantly on the price, and they forget about so many of those little terms and timelines that can cost them money. It's just like we talked about on the lending front before, you know, with John. They forget about the costs. They forget about the closing costs. They forget about the repairs. They forget about the energy efficiency that they're going to save by buying a new home, and they're focusing solely on the price. So a great example would be, we've seen consumers go back and forth weeks over small amounts of money, $1,000 or $2,000. And I don't mean to say that it's small, but in the grand scheme of things, that $1,000 or $2,000 you're looking to save, what if that was the 2 weeks that cost you not filing your homestead exemption, you know, or not being selling your home, and you go back and forth over 2 weeks, then it takes you 9.5 months to find the new one, and then a couple of months to close, and oh, you missed your homestead exemption filing date by a week. And if you go back in time, all that was because the 2 weeks you spent haggling over $1,000. Because people will sometimes get so focused on the price, they'll completely forget about all the other ancillary benefits and the little numbers that add up to big numbers by paying attention only to the price and not to the terms, you know. And we run into that a lot where people don't take it into consideration. And that's another thing that sometimes consumers don't do. You know, there's a period of time after assessment where, you know, so let's say, for example, you're buying an investment property and it's got a homestead exemption on it, right? And you're buying it, so for a certain period of time for that calendar year, you're going to get artificially low taxes. Well, that helps the investment for the period of time until it gets reassessed, but they never factor that in.